Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome, as I'm making yet another video, continuation of introducing you to various psychological and important practices and ideas and philosophies behind the ReParenting course, as we will be meeting for the second session this week. I would like to tell you about more important information for you to be aware as we will be exploring them throughout the course, okay? I'm going to share my presentation with you. And let's get started. Let's continue talking about the ReParenting course. We have discussed in previous open sessions the modules and the open information about the course. Let's start figuring out what else is there, what other important transformational practices will this course involve, okay? The foundation and the structure of the ReParenting course, okay? One of the important structures that we will be integrating within the course, I will be making a separate video in details discussing the transactional analysis by Eric Berne, okay? It's important to bring the important philosophical assumptions of the transactional analysis as we will be exploring in details and figuring out the way to bring transformation to this integrative part of who we are. Okay, the philosophical assumptions of the transactional analysis are, number one, people are okay. Okay, it's interesting to know that this statement is of essence rather than behavior. It means that each of us has worth, value, and dignity as a human being and deserves to be treated accordingly. When Eric Berne proposed the transactional analysis, of course, it was a result of lots and lots of research. It was done in the 60s and the 70s of the past century. This idea itself was quite of a novel idea, as much as the Declaration of Independence in the 1700s proposed that all people have the rights, right? All Americans have the rights. That was a novel idea at the time. Yet, psychologically speaking, bringing kind of assigning value to each human, to each individual, was a novel idea at the time when Eric Berne wrote this postulate of the transactional analysis. And it brought the idea of psychology to the field of personal psychology, that each individual matters. Each individual accomplishment is valued, is important. Each individual way of expressing oneself, okay, creativity, personal expression, all of this was very importantly brought out within this transactional analysis philosophy. The next idea, everyone has the capacity to think, brought forth the idea that everyone had a right to make their own decisions. Nobody should be making decisions for others. Nobody should be figuring things out or you know, telling somebody else what to do. Everybody have the capacity of a mental process. And that was an important part, an important conclusion, so to say, although I would say it wasn't a conclusion, it was just the beginning of what the transactional analysis proposed. And the third major assumption, right, was people decide their own destiny in making early script decisions. And these decisions can be changed. People get to figure out who they are, what they want, what they don't want. And guess what? Later on, they can change that decision and decide something else. Again, think about what a revolutionary idea that was at the time, in the 60s, in the 70s. This was one of the proponents of the hippies revolutions. It came, a part of it, it was all tied into that whole era, right? Where people said, no, we don't want governments making decisions for us. We don't want government telling us we need to go to war. Who says war is a good idea? Who says that killing of others is a way to figure out whatever conflicts countries are having or governments or individuals are having with each other? And that was the idea, okay? This is the assumption. The goal of transactional analysis brings forward the achievement of autonomy through updating the strategies for dealing with life that we decided on in the childhood. What it really discusses the fact that we all have inner part, sub part of who we are, that we will actually be discussing this further on as we discuss the transactional analysis. I will be making a separate video, but the idea is whichever decisions we made earlier in life do not have to stay that way. We have the right, remember what I told you in the previous assumptions, right? We have the right to change decisions. We have the right to decide. We have the right to grow, to change, to evolve, to develop. And that is all brought by more autonomy. Autonomy is defined as awareness, spontaneity, capacity for intimacy. The right to grow, the right to bring forth more decision, more interest. And that was the idea that transactional analysis brought at the time. Another interesting concept that we actually have discussed in the first session already, okay, as we discussed the soul mission, the way the mission, the soul goes through the journey of coming to earth, okay? We talked about conception. Conception as a base process, conception, the base point, the point of support, the beginning of it all. And our conception is a highly mystical process, but it connects us to the beginning of it all, to the beginning of how the soul connects to the decision to come to this earth. It's about hearing the calling to come to earth and agreeing, answering the calling, okay? We will also discuss Erik Erikson and his psychosocial stages of development. The main idea that we will be discussing in module 2 will be the term basic trust, okay? It comes from the very first stage that Erik Erikson proposed by saying that children develop by way of developing trust versus mistrust, okay? Basic trust is the child's expectation that his or her needs will be met by caregivers and the world is a safe place. That's a conclusion that the child will develop when his or her basic needs are met by the caregivers, by the mother, by the father, by major authority adults, okay? That includes babysitters, grandparents, you know, siblings, uncle and aunts, okay? It is a term used by several psychoanalytical writers, has been developed further to describe the sense of secure trust in other people that can develop. Erik Erikson originally kind of ascribed it as a result of a good mothering, okay? But yes, it does start, by the way, with a mothering, but then, of course, it's includes, nowadays we include both parents, the importance of both parents being present right away during pregnancy and then later on. Okay, the basic trust, according to Erikson, is formed by loving, sensitive caregivers and consistent with the basic needs for care and food being met with comfort and regularity, okay? He indicated that children who have secure attachments with their parents have a general sense that the world is predictable and reliable, and has developed this term, the basic trust. Okay, we will discuss, I'll be making a separate video about this. Okay, we will be discussing the attachment theory, a psychological, evolutionary, and ethological theory concerning relationships between humans. The most important tenet of the attachment theory is that young children need to develop a relationship with at least one primary caregiver for normal social and emotional development, okay, in order for a child, and it's connected to also the basic trust theory, okay, in order for a child to feel that this world is a safe place and I can connect to it and I can have connection back, I will have connection back, I am valued in this world, is by having a relationship with, at least it's considered to be mother, right? That's the first person the child connects to, but also the father counts. And that's why we will have two modules. One module, to module 2, we will deal with the mother energy, and the third module, we will deal with the father energy, okay? The attachment theory is actually a psychological framework originally developed by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, okay? And attachment theory is a developmental, it is a part of developmental psychology, okay? It's a description of how children develop, okay? How children learn to live in the world. And it discusses the fact that humans are born with the need to create a close emotional bond with their caregiver, okay? And that bond develops within the first 6 months, okay? And it includes the 4 S's of a secure attachment style. It refers to safe, being seen, okay, being soothed by a parent, and feeling secured by a parent. Making children feel this way may help them establish healthy bonds in their adulthood. As we will explore all those theories, the attachment theory, the basic trust theory, okay, developing basic trust, we will be kind of recreating, and reliving these experiences as if like reforming them within our life. And that's an important part to pay attention to. This is what the course is focused on. In this course, we will be focusing a lot on legitimizing emotions and feelings, okay? It's very important to know that most people have not had the experience of having their emotions and feelings legitimized, having their emotions and feelings accepted as part of who they are, as part of how they developed. They have not, most importantly, they have not been taught on how to properly process not just positive emotions, but most importantly, even more importantly, negative emotions, okay? A lot of people are afraid of negative emotions because they don't know how to process it. They connect processing or having negative emotions with something bad necessarily happening in their life, okay? And that's an important part of what we're going to go through. Again, this will be a huge focus in module 2, okay? There's an interesting term called the containment. We will be having a separate video about it. It's called the containment process, okay? And within that psychological model, the mother is actually the model of the containment process. The mother is, as the carrier of the feminine energy, mostly, okay? The main primary caregiver, most of the time is the mother. Sometimes it actually could be the father, and sometimes it could be grandparents, okay? Many cultures have that. But the important part is to learn to focus, to learn to bring, to use, to process emotions as a way of experiencing life, to learn to process them and go further. Not to be able to break, not to be able to not know what to do when something negative happens, okay? We will focus on 3 main pairs. For example, will be anger and love, fear and trust, pain and pleasure. They're connected to each other. Okay, again, we will be exploring this in module 2, which, by the way, will be starting next week. This week, we're still finishing module 1. Still have a chance to connect, to sign up, to register for the course, okay? Container and Contained, a psychological theory by Wilfred Bion, okay, Bion. Container and Contained is a theory that was built on the work by Jung, Carl Gustav Jung. The concept of containment refers to an experience of feeling held and protected, both in the physical and emotional sense, okay? When a child cries, it's very important to allow the child to feel accepted with their expression of negative. A lot of times when a child cries, what do the parents do? They start saying, shh, quiet, quiet, quiet. The parents don't know how to handle negative emotions. As a result, they pass on that processing integration part, the way to process negative emotion to the child. And the child will learn that, oh, negative emotions is bad. I should avoid having negative emotions. As a result, any attachment to negative emotions, any processing negative emotion will inevitably attach itself to the fact that, oh, that will lead to negative experience. which may not necessarily, it does not necessarily mean that it will. Okay, and that's an important part. The concept of containment refers to an experience of feeling held, protected, I said, physical, emotional sense. And the psychologists relate this experience back to the birth, the relationship between the mother and the child, okay? When the child cried, asking, expressing their need, and the mother tries to shush, is not an acceptance, but rather form of, I'm going to say fully rejection, but a form of rejection of this particular emotion. And that's a message that the child gets. This emotion is not acceptable. And as a result, the child does not know how to process, because we cannot avoid negative emotions. They exist. They're part of what they are. Okay. This concept refers to acknowledging the emotions of children as they experience it from the infant age. Exactly what I just, yeah. Okay. It's interesting to start noting, to expand more on this amazing idea, is that in the mother-child relationship, the mother is a container and the child is the contained. Okay, the baby is not so good in emotions. Okay, but it doesn't know what emotions are. It experiences emotions, but it doesn't fully consciously understand what emotions represent, what part of their experience emotions represent. It doesn't understand how to process emotions in a way that will, A, lead to what they want to achieve by crying out loud, whether for an infant, of course, for newborn, it's either wanting to eat or being changed or being held, right? An important concept that a lot of, for a long time, hasn't been accepted, right? Parents didn't know. They only thought that the child will cry, meaning eating or changing, right? While it was important for a child to, we talked about it, the attachment theory, right? To feel connected to the mother by being held, okay? And that was an interesting idea, that for a child, a lot of emotions, because that's what children experience in the beginning, there's not a lot of a mindfulness idea. There's not much happening on a thought process level, but mostly things happening on a body level and the emotional level. And that's something strange and new. The term is strange and new, as I put here in parentheses, right? And that's the idea that without having in the foundation of what the strange and new represents, how I can connect it, how I can develop it, learn to process it as part of my life experience, right? If the mother doesn't show it, if the mother does not herself, which most of us were not taught, especially those of us who are empath, who have a very strong emotional development, whose way of connecting to life is emotional development, and we're not taught how to process, we will further on most probably have emotional children, and again, will not know how to teach them. So it's an important concept that we need to bring in, we need to accept, we need to start understanding more and bringing as a realization. I will actually be making a separate course called the emotions course, where we'll be exploring this concept in details, each emotion separately. We'll have a session for each emotion to learn how to integrate and process it within our life, okay? It's interesting to start understanding, right, that it's about, and we connect to it, we logically, mentally explain it as the pain of the child, right? But it's really not fully pain. It's about the emotional strength that the child learns to develop as a way of processing various, and I'm going to keep saying the word negative because that's the word we assign to it. It doesn't necessarily mean it is negative, but that's unfortunately the way we view it. Because in our mind, if we're crying and we're not picked up, it became an association with the follow-up experience. The experience of crying is not necessarily a bad experience. It's the fact that if we weren't picked up after crying, we say, okay, so crying means it's something bad might happen afterward. And that's the idea, okay? It's very important for children to learn that crying can lead to something good. Crying does not necessarily have to be an experience that a way to process negative experience. Can also mean a way to process positive experience. It's a very deep and controversial in a way, because even now, this was actually proposed by Alexander Lowen in the 50s, in the 60s, okay? It's still now, 50, 70 years later, still considered to be quite controversial. Still, there's so much room for it to improve this theory and ideas to be accepted within the psychological world. The conventional psychological world, as if accepted it. Remember, the psychology field is a very conservative field, okay? So it kind of accepted, but not really. Because you know why? Because it doesn't fully understand it. Do you know why? Because it hasn't fully processed it. We don't have much of experience learning how to process negative emotions. So as a result, we cannot fully accept it because we don't fully understand it. So that's something for us to learn, to teach the future generation. Of course, we're going to start with ourselves. As we learn this, as we relieve our experiences, our connection, as we relieve the attachment to our mother, the way we develop the basic trust in the world, we will also relieve our original experience of experiencing negative emotions and learning to process it and connect it to having good outcomes, to it leading to something good, to it being just a part of life experience without necessarily attaching itself to something bad necessarily happening, okay? And that's an interesting idea, okay? And this is one of the messages. When a mother properly portrays the processing of negative emotion, this is what the message that the child gets. I see your pain and I'm able to hold your emotions and be okay. I can be sad and not die. I can be sad and not shatter. And that's the idea. Shatter to pieces, okay? That's the idea. Okay? It's interesting that there are two types of containers that are relevant to the theory. Yeah, it says about one is I'm okay. I see your pain and I'm okay. And the other one that the mother sent the message is I can copy your pain, I can demonstrate having it, and then effectively model self-soothing. The idea of self-soothing, the appropriate self-soothing, not the kind that the infamous Dr. Benjamin Spock would propose, where children were supposed to be left crying until they supposedly soothe themselves to sleep. That's not the proper self-soothing. That was a misconception. That was an actual opposite of what we're discussing, okay? It's actually showing that I do not accept your right to cry, to express your way of showing discontent with the fact that you're not being given proper emotional and physical attention from the caregiver, from the mother, okay? Again, we will explore this in details. I'm going to make a separate video about the container and the contained, okay? It's very interesting to note. We will be discussing in 3 modules, 2, 3, and 4, the study of body dynamics. In America, it's called somatic psychology, practice developed by Elizabeth Marshall. It's based upon the body-oriented therapy that was created originally by William Reich, okay? And it brings in the idea, it is based upon the idea the body instinct is the way that children, infants, right, newborns and infants, they are given body instinct as a way to navigate life in the beginning. And what ends up staying for adults, okay, what it turns later on. And we will go through, I will lead you through all 7 stages of development within body instinct called body dynamics, okay? Okay, again, we will discuss, as we mentioned, the emotions. We will be specifically discussing we'll be talking, integrating, this is important, but integrating we will lift the taboos of the living energies, which is the way we view aggression and sexuality, okay? The way it's conventional viewed as something negative, we will re-evaluate that view, re-evaluate that approach to these 2 very important living energies within human life, okay? And that's what another way to talk about body instinct. One of the examples you can see in the pictures, when babies bite, that's considered to be a sign of aggression. Most of the time, parents are focused on teaching the children out, teaching them to say no, no, focusing on mostly to get the child to stop the biting, instead of focusing on how do we learn for children to process this living energy within them, specifically aggression, okay? When a children bites, it's about the energy they express. It's about their emotions They cannot express otherwise. It's again, like I said, very complex and controversial, intersective emotion that we need to learn to figure out within us, because as adults, we have a lot of aggression, and of course, hidden sexuality hidden within our shadows. We need to learn to contemplate, because it comes out in different ways, okay? Such thing as eating disorders, right? Various types of sexual inhibitions, okay? Connected to various taboos, based, of course, by religion, based, of course, by conservative traditional views on the way people should be. The word should be is, of course, putting in parentheses, living their life, okay? We need to revisit these ideas and start working with them further. Reintroduce them to our life with a more appropriate way to integrate them into our life, okay? We'll discuss the idea of how the anxiety of the mother transferring to the fetus while the baby is still in the womb. And that creates the foundation for anxiety that the baby may have later when it's born, but it's actually even relevant within the womb, okay? When the mother has anxiety about life, experiences life conditions, the child will receive that anxiety, and that will create reluctance to birth, that will create various difficulties the mother later on may experience during birth, as well as the baby being delivered through various types of difficulties that occur during birth, okay? A lot of it is very metaphysical. A lot of it is based on the mental condition, the emotional condition. Again, what's something we refer to as mother anxiety, but we know that that involves a number of factors, mental, emotional. We need to relieve that. We need to figure that out. We will be discussing it in module 2, okay? We'll go, like I mentioned before, through Erickson's stages of development, okay? You see here, trust, mistrust is a development that occurs between the age of the infant and 18 months, okay? Actually, now they say it's actually starts occurring within the second trimester, okay? The important part to remember. More about the stages of development. We will go into details for this, okay? We will discuss Freud's child development stages, okay? The 5 major stages that Freud proposed based upon most major psycho-development, psychosocial, emotional developmental stages for children and adults have been proposed to, okay? We will discuss the idea of metamodern quadrants, okay? This will be most relevant in module 3 and 4 and 5, okay? The idea of learning how to adapt yourself to this four-way to approach any life decision or any life structure in life, okay? We will talk about Stanislav Grof and perinatal matrices, okay? We will discuss the 4 major, again, stages and what do they mean, okay? This will be processed in actually module 2, next module, and we will start dealing with the mother energy, okay? Again, reminding you that the ReParenting course will take place on 10 Thursdays, okay? We just started last Thursday. We will continue the second session. You have lots of chances to still join. You can watch the first 2 sessions in recording and start joining us for more live sessions. Again, all the live sessions take place at 12 p.m. on Thursdays, 12 p.m. EST, but they're usually uploaded within 12 hours, and you can start watching them right away, okay? Doing the program, doing the drawing, working with us, integrating all those amazing, amazing practices to start bringing changes into your life, okay? To get more information, to register, you can welcome to go to any of this website. They're both connected to the same, NeuroGraphicaUSA.com, LanaShalom.com, okay? Thank you for your attention. I'm hoping to see you in one of the sessions, and welcome to join us for more open sessions to learn more about what creates this amazing part of who we are, our psyche, our mental capacity, our emotional capacity, recreating it, learning more so we can understand more.